Factory is like the Amazon of sheet metal. Presumably you won't be doing next day delivery, like prime for metal.
We have done that a couple of times,
Oh,
actually.
really?
Yeah, we've got a flyer on.
Where it could really change is in the admin sides for both companies and our production teams as well, because we're seriously cutting the amount of manpower they would require to be able to get the jobs on. We have some production teams who have actually had to hire more people on the shop floor.
This month alone, we've already put £280,000 into the UK market.
So £200,000 worth of orders into the manufacturers.
That's what we've spent with manufacturers in the UK this month.
And opening up new markets to manufacturers that traditionally they probably wouldn't have access to. How's it going to change the future? Tell us about Factory first, and then what we'll do is we'll go in and talk about what traditionally the industry does and how it handles. So tell us about what Factory is and what it's sort of there to solve.
So Factory is an online on-demand fabrication procurement platform. So what that means is you can come to us with your own custom designs, your own assemblies that you need to be made, your own custom production requirements, and order them as simply as possible through us using our automated system. So trying to really reduce the amount of time that people have to wait to get back their prices, their lead times, and just make it a lot smoother for them to actually order parts that they require, and also make it more accessible to the general public as well as to the higher companies that require this. We also have a manufacturing side as well. So I work in the sales, so more with the clients, whereas Rowan works actually with our production teams and where it can benefit them.
So that's where the interface is between the customer, the service user, and the greater industry in the UK, because we identified, or our founders identified, that there was a disconnect there between how easy it should be and the reality of ordering parts, whether it's sheet metal, it's fabrication, or it's machine parts. It was just, for some people it'd be inaccessible, for other people it'd just be a really inefficient process. So by creating that interface where we have Mark creating this, working in sales, his team go out there, liaise with the customers, find out what they really need, and then we've got a diverse supply network that fills that hole basically.
So we are talking predominantly about metal fabrication. Yeah. And so what are we changing here in terms of the traditional ways of someone trying to order metal or sheet metal? What is the traditional process of, say I'm a construction company or even just a hobbyist, if I wanted to order metal, how did it work?
I've seen both sides of the coin on this one. So the old way of doing it is you'd phone somebody up, either that you've got a relationship or you've not got a relationship with. You'd have a quick chat, and then they'd give you their email address over the phone, over a crackly phone line. You'd try and write it down on the back of a fag packet or whatever you've got to hand. You'd send over a PDF, and then you might, or you might not, about a week and a half, 2 weeks later, get a phone call where they go, yeah, that's 300 quid, mate. And it was an insecure, inefficient process. So we've gone from that to the other extreme, which Mark can talk you through what the customer experience is now.
So what the customer experience is now is they draw up their parts, they draw up their designs, they come to our website, simply upload them onto our site, say how many they want, what material they want, and within 30 seconds, we tell them what their price and when it can be delivered to them is. So a lot quicker and a lot more efficient. You also touched on, say, the main industry, which this obviously helps because you've got less communication between different personnel within the companies. A design engineer can just go on, get the price and go to their purchaser and say, I've already got it for you, without them having to go out to 5-10 different people and wait for them all to come back. And then even on the hobbyist side, they might not even have got a look in to larger manufacturers who just didn't necessarily want to quote, didn't have them as a priority, but because of our automated system, it's doesn't discriminate against order size, has no maximum order size, no really minimum too much, and they can just come on, see how much their parts are for a small job, and still get a quote the same way that the larger companies would as well.
So it's basically you're making metal fabrication more accessible to a much wider market, a market which, like a hobbyist, for example, who might want to build, redo a car, an old car, for example, and wants to get some car parts built, to a spec. He can now upload some CAD drawings to factory, and essentially you can then source that particular fabrication.
Yeah. And what's happened is, rather than it just being for that guy that we often refer to as kind of a Fred in the shed, kind of a guy that's tinkering with something on a weekend that needs something, by making the whole process lean, it's not just him that benefits, it's everybody up to OEMs and big blue chip companies.
Sure.
They get the same benefits from it, whether they're ordering 100,000 parts, a really complex assembly, or a bracket for fitting an exhaust pipe that's gone bust and it's somewhere on the M62.
Fantastic.
It's for everybody.
That's great. My mind is absolutely exploding at the moment at what I can do in the house with like this kind of, because obviously, metal fabrication for consumers like myself, I mean, I'm not building car parts, but I like to do a lot of stuff in the house, which traditionally might be wood, for example. But now I'm thinking, actually, if there are some specific parts, if something like this is making it accessible for, a regular Joe like me, that's big, right? That's huge, because you're making something that was traditionally at the top end for big, large companies. Now you're making this accessible to hobbyists and people wanting to do small jobs. So just to be clear to the listeners and viewers, what you are not the manufacturer, you are not the fabricator, you are the platform that integrates and connects the end user to a manufacturer.
Exactly. So to go back to your example, Terry, if you've got something in the house, you're in Manchester, there's a lot of fabrication places around South and East Manchester. You could take that down with a little sketch and go to one supplier. You're then bound by his price and his lead time. It'd take you a day to go around enough to get a comparison.
Sure.
So what we're doing is that you come to us, and we're not connecting you to just one supplier. We're connecting you to over 40 in the UK.
Wow.
And that number's growing every day. And then what that generates is that you get a better price. We can also, your little part could be going onto the same sheet or coming out of the same material as parts for all of our other customers, big and small. So your price and lead time has just gone down to about 1/10 of what it would be doing it the old-fashioned way. So you're saving time, you're saving money, but then it also comes into the sustainability aspect, because rather than running one sheet for your job at that fabrication company that you went to, we filled the sheet somewhere else. So there's no offcuts, there's no waste. The guy who's loading it onto the machine, he's working more efficiently. And again, it's about making that whole process from start to finish, from the moment you have the idea to the moment that's in your hand at home. The whole process is just made more efficient and lean.
So for the consumer, well, the end user, it's making it more efficiently and accessible. For the manufacturer, less waste, more efficient, and I guess a bigger market, right?
Yeah, that's it. In terms of the social sustainability, Martin, who was one of the founders of the company, he was working as a design engineer, and he found that about 60-70% of his time was taken up by getting quotes. So, but you've just come out of university, you've been there for 4 or 5 years, you've got all this knowledge in your head. You spend an hour designing the part, but 4 hours trying to get it made. It seemed like a backward way of doing things. So no matter what size the customer is, whether it's you or it's a huge organization, we're just trimming away, because time is money. We're just trimming away all that waste all the time.
That's fantastic. Yeah, it's something that that people don't think about, that sustainability point of view, because obviously they think, metal fabrication is just metal fabrication. But actually, if you're in the industry and you think about the waste that goes into that, and it adds up. If you were to compare or to a tech company that's sort of disrupted their industry, where you've got the likes of Airbnb, who have disrupted the hotel industry, where they've come in with a platform and made it accessible for homeowners and people looking for rental of hotels and apartments, things like that. They've made that accessible. How would you sort of compare, because what you're doing here is making it accessible to a wider market? Would you compare yourself to the likes of the marketplaces like Airbnb and so forth?
So I've always liked to think of it as kind of when Amazon was coming up and they did the deal with Toys R Us. So previously you'd have to drive over to Toys R Us, you'd go through and you'd be, as Rowan was saying, locked into their prices. You wouldn't really get many comparisons. You'd be able to shop around, but only within there. And then Amazon came along, and with a quick search on there, you were able to get many competitive toys. You were able to buy from different places and get the best for you, as well as how quick it could be getting to you as well, even on Amazon. So that's kind of what we're doing in sheet metal, is bringing all of these production teams all under one roof for you to be able to come to and get the best deal that you possibly can, and one that's also tailored to yourself. And maybe even like with Amazon, you can find things that you didn't even necessarily know that you needed, or things that you knew that Toys R Us weren't able to do, so you'd have to go to another shop. Whereas we do have so many capabilities and almost an infinite capacity, that a brief conversation, we could be solving quite a lot of your issues rather than you having to go to a different shop for each one.
I think a big bit of this, Mark, just tying in with what you're saying, I've worked for and with some significant players in aerospace, in defense, and there's so much red tape in there in terms of you have to get so many quotes, but we also want them yesterday. A lot of the time they say, before anybody places an order, you've got to have 3 quotes in. We get 14 within 9 seconds and we give you the best one. So we're just making that whole process more efficient and just more competitive for the customer.
So like the factory is like the Amazon of sheet metal fabrication.
Yeah, essentially.
Fantastic. Presumably you won't be doing next day delivery, like prime for metal.
We have done that a couple of times.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we've got a flyer on.
Fantastic. We've talked about who the audience is for factory and what the benefits are. What's the next stage for you're making online sort of metal fabrication more accessible, making it more sustainable, more efficient for the manufacturers? But what's next? Where's the technology going? How can it be improved further if you've already kind of almost perfected that kind of accessibility? Where's the technology going after?
So it's quite a lot of it is going into the actual capabilities that are on the platform that we have. So when I started about 2.5 years ago, we probably had about maybe a fifth of what we can offer now, such as we weren't offering things like tube and welding assemblies, as well as a few surface treatments, whereas now we're bringing all of them into it and making them automated as well, making that procurement a lot leaner, as well as expanding on our production team side with Rowan to be able to increase our capacity, increase the things that we can actually work on and make, and providing complete with high quality as well. So a lot of what we're trying to build on is our offering, as well as making the customer interface a lot leaner. I believe something that's coming out soon is a parts library. So when you do upload your pieces, you can say what goes into a certain assembly and just say, I want to reorder this again, maybe in a different quantity, and just go back through what you have ordered before. So for larger companies and blue chips, which have a lot of serial production, it just makes the procurement goes from a few clicks and a few uploads to just one click. And that's what we're trying to just reduce and make even more socially sustainable for those companies.
No, fantastic. So with that in mind, making more those parts accessible to other people and opening up other new markets to manufacturers that traditionally they probably wouldn't have access to, how's it going to change the future, and what other industries is it going to either create or disrupt? Because obviously now that you've opened up manufacturers to whole new markets with accessibility, usually it creates new opportunities and new industries. What kind of new industries and what industries is it going to disrupt?
I think we can pretty much with this move into, as we start developing and perfecting current industries that we work with, we can start moving into more industries and just kind of adding on to this. So the expansion is huge. I think where it could really change is in the admin sides for both companies and our production teams as well, because we're seriously cutting the amount of manpower they would require to be able to get the jobs on. We have some production teams who have actually had to hire more people on the shop floor than previously just to keep up with how much work they were able to get by working with us, but not having to increase the size of their estimators because all the pricing is already done. It's already been fed into our system, so they can trust that it's all accurate, and then they can just carry on working and making sure that their processes are more efficient to be able to take on more work as well. So that's how I see it really changing the industry, as well as in companies as well. You currently have a design engineer who has to draw up the parts, then go to procurement, then the procurement goes out and then gets the prices. Whereas if the design engineer, as they're drawing up their CAD, can just drop it into our platform, see what the price is, bring it out, change the design a little bit, drop it in, see if they've saved a bit of money for themselves. And then when they're satisfied with that, then go to procurement and say, I'm wanting to buy this. It just cuts out a lot of legwork on their side. So by making it automated, I can see it really changing the actual industry and just how companies work internally as well. And also, kind of like Amazon, when you're on our system after you've placed an order, you can see the delivery and it's going to be out to you. The invoices get automatically made. So the design engineer, the procurement, the accounting, and the production manager who's going to be taking on the delivery don't need to chase each other up. All the information is just there for them to be able to have a look at. So just helping make companies leaner.
And how do you think that's going to sort of change just society in general then, in terms of outside of, because you mentioned there in terms of helping the admin function there and you had a client that put more on the production side. What's the knock-on effect there? Is it going to mean that the skill of on the production side is going to be, improved, and if there's a lot less admin to do on the ordering and the procurement side, does that mean that with the accessibility to large and small businesses, does that mean on the production side it's going to be, they're going to be able to make, even better, even more advanced type products?
Well, you'd start seeing more high-skilled labor in these teams. A lot of the guys who are working in admin are working as estimating, have worked on the shop floor as well, or you even have teams where they have to come away from the shop floor to estimate and build up quotes. So you'd actually would have more high-skilled labor free to be able to be on the shop floor, the more experienced guys, to be able to make sure that the quality comes through well as work out newer processes on how to make them more efficient. So helping with the sustainability and speed of the parts coming out as well.
Fantastic. Are you able to give us sort of high level numbers, without giving too much away, kind of what kind of, how much in, whether it's in terms of volume or in dollar or pound amounts, what kind of that's gone through factory or you've helped?
This month alone, we've already put £280,000 into the UK market. And that's just, what day are we on? The 15th of July. So we're halfway through the month. And
So £200,000 worth of orders into the manufacturers.
That's what we've spent with manufacturers in the UK this month. It's somewhere around that mark, 250, 300,000.
And how long's factory been going for?
I think we're in our fourth year now.
Yeah, so the UK side of things was earlier on in 2019 when we set up here, but I believe out in Estonia when, as Rowan was saying, Martin was complaining about getting quotes back and then spoke with his friends Josip and Rain, and they started building this. I think that was 2017 that they started. So from there, with just these three guys, to now working in the UK, Finland, Estonia, the US, Lithuania, and planning on expanding to many more markets, many more countries.
And this is these places are just where we've got people working, but that spend that we've put into the UK market this month, that's customers that are around the world. So
right.
I think it's what we're making is a worthwhile contribution to the UK economy as well, because going back to you, Terry, and the example of you, these guys all over the world that have got that problem, whether they're working on something at home or they're working on something, you know, in a business, in an organization. We've delivered parts all over the globe. There's been some really obscure places, but when it comes to the UK team, we're reinvesting that money in manufacturing. A lot of it is in the northwest of England. We have got people all over the country, all over the UK, but there's so many companies in the local area that we've just connected up to this customer base that is around the planet, and it is working really well.
And traditionally, they wouldn't have had access to that customer base.
No, these people that we work with, manufacturers, some of our best manufacturers, who they'd never advertised externally. They'd never gone any further than maybe putting the phone number in the yellow pages or something like that. And they never had the money there to invest in the marketing side. So to connect them up to the revenue stream that we have and to make a contribution to their business without them having to invest in the marketing side, in the customer service side, Factory handles all of that. The benefit is that then they get the work from us. We connect them up to these customers.
I think your comparison there, Mark, with Amazon is really spot on there, because way back when Amazon started allowing third-party sellers on their platform, and you had, you know, like you said, either a manufacturer or a distributor or someone or retailer who would traditionally sell in their local market, now has access to a global audience, where somebody in the States might want something very specific that someone in Rochdale has, for example. And I think that's what Factory seems to be addressing, that same pain point.
That's it. Where our office is, in the Oakenhouse Studios building, it's literally a stone's throw from Liverpool Road train station, where the Industrial Revolution essentially started. Around Manchester it's a base for all heavy engineering, all precise engineering. We've shipped stuff from Manchester over the last 200 years to every corner of the world. I know from the industries that I was working in, the stuff that they do around here that they can't do in America, they can't do it in China, they can't do it in Australia. So that expertise, we're making that available to everybody, whereas it would have been a long, prolonged process in the past, and you would have had a 3 to a 6 month lead time. We're getting stuff to people in 2 weeks now that they couldn't get done in their area.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. In building the business, so when Martin first came up with the idea of Factory with his founders, the inspiration was essentially that there was almost a block on how accessible he could get to quotes and whatnot. In building, you know, what was the first version of Factory, and how has it sort of evolved since that first version?
So the initial versions of Factory were very simplistic, more just working on just laser cutting of flats pieces and trying to work out how to price them with limited production teams as well, to be able to share the pricing. And there was the automated side, but it was quite a lot more manual. So the development from there to now, where we can do large scale pieces in multiple processes with like all the parts for your assembly on there as well, and be able to handle even more outside of that. It's been building one step at a time. So it's been from perfecting one process, building it up to the next one, building it up to the next one, until we can start adding more and more of what our clients actually want.
Sure.
And that came a lot from speaking with our customers. Our developers usually think of them as quite not wanting to go out and speak to many people, but they've been very vocal at speaking to our good clients, seeing what they actually want, what they'd like included, what features would make it even easier for them. And then they've gone away, worked on it, taken the best points, amalgamated a lot of points together to create the product that we have today. So quite a lot of it was built from our client base, as well as on our manufacturer side as well, getting feedback from them of what they need to make the processes easier for them. And we've spent a lot of time, I'm sure a lot of money, on trying to make sure that they do marry up, and we can satisfy both sides as well as we can.
Great. No, that's fascinating. That in terms of it fascinates me how tech companies, a lot of people look at tech companies and the finished product that they are today, or the evolving product that they are today, that's how they started. But actually, there's a lot of challenging times and hurdles to overcome, especially in tech business, because you can build things fast, but you mentioned there, Mark, about just the demand from customers and actually what they want. In our industry, we're building new platforms all the time, and some work fantastically and as planned, and some have to pivot to something to be able to. So Factory from day one was meant for what it's done to what it's doing today.
Yeah, I think it's the big thing is identifying the need for any company out there. There's got to be a real need in the marketplace for what we're doing. Amazon, people needed books, and they needed more books than were in their local bookshop. So Jeff Bezos saw that market there, and it's easy enough to put a book in a package and stick a stamp on it and send it away. We identified the exact same problem. People needed more suppliers than what they had in their region, and we brought people together, basically. The real value for the company is what Mark alluded to with the developers, the stuff that they've done, the processes that they've automated. I've seen it done the old-fashioned way. The people I used to work with did have a drawing, did have a pen, and they would just sit there and pick a number out of the head. And yeah, most of the time they got it right, but surely their time would be better spent looking at something else that an algorithm can't solve.
Yeah.
So whereas they'd be looking at a block and thinking, right, how long could it take me to mill that surface, to put that hole in there, to tap that hole? What's the risk of that? All of those variables you can put into through machine learning. You can put that into an algorithm for it to be solved, and that's what we've done. And I think people out there in the marketplace are seeing the value of it now. Some of the inquiries that we've had, some of the orders that we've fulfilled for big manufacturers, they're looking at their internal processes, as everybody is in the current climate, thinking, how can we trim stuff back? How can we make this more cost effective? And in manufacturing, in all honesty, the solution is Factory, because we can solve your problems quickly, easily, and efficiently.
You mentioned there about the fact that you can solve problems, and I guess if you've got enough people that have the same problem, and that happens a lot, I guess you're saving a lot of man hours there for everybody, where who might be solving the same problem separately. But whereas if you can do it at source, you're solving those problems for those people that would have had to do it themselves.
Absolutely, and I think Mark, this is my second spell now with the company, but from my first spell, some of the drawings that me and Mark used to get through, and we think, what is it? How would we even do that? And we're two fairly knowledgeable guys, but then when the second one comes through and the third one comes through, you think, yeah, we're gonna have to find a solution to this problem.
Sure.
And that's what's happened, especially with going into the CNC market as well. We got that many people saying, could you not just do this? Do you not know somebody who could do that? And then we went, you know what? Yeah, we do. And then that side of the business has just snowballed. And the next thing, there will be, other areas that we can go into. 3D printing was one thing that that is always being looked at, that we're always getting asked about, and there's the other old-fashioned manufacturing processes that we're getting asked about. Post processes, there's a big push on that at the moment, and we're finding people who can supply that. So yeah, it's all about connections and bringing people together and finding solutions for these problems.
And you just alluded there to 3D printing, and that's not what you do now, but in terms of once you've got that sort of customer base where they're now open and they've got access to a lot of your manufacturers, what's to say that you can't have other types of fabrication and other types of materials? And because you've already got that, because if you've got your process right already in terms of factories processes, what's to stop you from using that same process for the other type of manufacturing?
Absolutely. This concept is infinitely scalable. So you can add bits on. Our specialism is engineering, so that's what we will work within. But whatever our customers need, we will find a way to source it. And I think that's what they see within us, because people phone me up and do ask me, can you not just do this for me? Because I've got 99 parts on here are sheet metal or are CNC, but then there's this one bit that I really need to complete the order. And I'd rather place it all with you. And we just go, yeah, well, we're a solutions
That's great.
company. That's what we'll do.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fascinating. Guys, this has been eye-opening for me. I'm not sure my wife is going to like what might come of this with the house, but no, it's fascinating. Thank you for sharing your story with the factory with us. And yeah, I think a lot of viewers are going to look at this and think, especially a lot of hobbyists are now thinking, like, going crazy with the creative ideas. Thank you guys for taking the time today and joining us.
Cheers, Terry. Thanks very much.